Hello, Mark Wade Larson here for the Dreamcatcher podcast. Thanks for joining us. Today, my guest is David Reynolds. Welcome to the podcast, David. How are you doing?
I'm well. I'm well.
Good. So David and I just got to know each other pretty recently at the Y.
Yes.
So you work at the Y. How long have you been working at the Y?
So this is I guess you could say my second time at the Y. I've been working there since I want to say February, beginning mid-February of this year. But I had worked there when I came to Hastings back in 2016.
Okay.
When I moved back to Omaha, I worked there as well.
Okay. So you came back. You've been in Hastings for a while then.
Yes.
Okay.
Since 2016.
Okay. Cool. So what brought you back here then?
Brought me back to Hastings? Well, when I originally came out here, the goal was just to make this my home.
Okay.
And I went back due to some family things, and when that kind of I was done there. Like everything was squared away there. So I just ended up coming back because I just felt Hastings was where I needed to be.
Okay.
And there was just a lot of negativity for me in Omaha.
Yeah. So yeah, North Omaha is where you were born and raised?
Yeah. Well,
no. Raised?
Yes, I was born in Omaha, but at St. Joseph Hospital, which is like South Omaha.
Okay.
Raised up in North, so yeah.
Okay. So how long did you live in North Omaha then?
Till I want to say 19. I was old enough to make my own decisions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was that a good thing?
It was what you make it.
True.
Yeah, it is what you make it.
Okay. So we were just talking before we started the podcast. So North Omaha, you what was your life like in North Omaha?
So I like to say I was a man of many faces simply because just living there are a lot of things that I know for me where I lived. It was a very, for lack of better terms, urban area. So there was a lot of negative influences, gangs, drugs, all types of things. So a person needed to do what they needed to do to survive.
Right.
So for me, it was, yes, I did the athlete thing, the school thing, trying to be the positive person, the choir boy thing, I call it. But at the same time, I found myself involved with gangs, with a lot of what's just umbrella with negativity.
Which was around there. Okay.
Yeah.
So how, with gangs, how did just kind of fell into that, or how did that work? I mean, how did that occur, I should say?
So for a lot of people, it happens out of necessity. Like I know in this part of Nebraska and a lot of places, especially on TV, you see it's glamorized. Folks don't want to be a part of that life, but a lot of people do it just for a sense of camaraderie. They have no family at home.
I understand that.
Or you may have it, but these people aren't emotionally present.
Okay.
So you find yourself with this group of individuals very similar to yourself who just so happen to say, yeah, I got your back. I'll look out for you. All you need to do is do this thing.
Sure.
And whatever that thing is at that time seems so attractive because what you are seeming to gain
is
so important to you.
True. Never thought of it that way.
And so it's you end up doing a lot of these things out of loyalty, out of, well, that's my family. This is my crew.
Right.
Next thing you know, you find yourself doing things that you never thought you'd be able to even do.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, so how long were you in that environment?
So I found myself involved in that till I was about 25.
Okay.
That was when my life kind of changed. Well, 24, my life kind of changed a bit.
Okay.
Which led to me coming out here.
Okay. So, was it hard getting out of the game?
Not necessarily. For me, I was, for lack of better words, I found myself getting into trouble. And I found myself getting incarcerated. And in there's just some internal choices made. And I'm just like, I'm done. And so with that came a lot of distaste for me. But it can be tough. But for a person who was done with that lifestyle, it was a very easy choice.
Okay. So we were talking before I started the podcast about knowing God. Did you know God then?
So I grew up in the church. I grew up in an Episcopal church in Bellevue.
Okay.
So I was going to Bible studies, being an altar boy since I was 9, maybe younger.
Okay.
So I knew God mentally, if that makes any sense. Like I had the knowledge.
Sure. Okay.
I knew the black and white behind it.
Right.
That personal relationship, that deep connection
Okay.
was not there yet.
Okay.
But I found myself in a place where it was just me, and I can call it the whole of my life.
Okay.
If you don't mind me saying, I did end up being incarcerated
Okay.
because of those negative things.
Right.
And I call it the pit of my life. And in that pit, like I look around, there's nothing but darkness, and I needed light. And so I look up to the one light that I knew.
Right.
He was always there, but I just forgot.
Right.
Because God never leaves us. Our eyes just go off of him.
True.
And once I finally look back, I'm like, oh yeah, you're there.
Uh-huh.
And so
I love that. And that's so true. So, I mean, that is so true. But so, okay. I mean, you have come so far from that. I mean, my gosh. So when you came out to Hastings, did you think you'd be working for the Y or?
Not at all. I didn't think I was good enough.
Really? Okay.
At that point, I was still, and I guess I am rough around the edges, but I was fresh out of incarceration, fresh out of a place where the day I walked out, the person said, "Hey, we'll see you back here. You're gonna come back. We know you're tight." And so it was one of those things where mentally, my brain hadn't comprehended the fact that I had a fresh start. I could literally go as far as my imagination.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I had nothing. It didn't even occur to me. I figured I'd be working some construction job for the rest of my life, being a nobody. But little did I realize, I mean, God has plans.
Yes.
The word says his ways, his thoughts are bigger than our thoughts. His ways are higher than our ways. And so I guess he just had a plan.
Yes. He has a lot of plans for you. Like I was telling you, you have a huge calling on you, just from what for the probably weeks since I've known you. It hasn't been very long. So, so when you started the Y, what is the goal? I mean, I always talk about what was your dream when you were growing up?
So back then, what was my dream growing up? Growing up, I wanted to be an architect.
Okay.
I drew a lot. I was involved in all of the arts. Yes, some negativity, but at the same time, like I found myself being good at a lot of different things. So I drew. I was really into cartoons, really into drawing, really into singing. Just a lot of these different things, athletics. And so but coming to the Y, the goal was honestly, I was at Bristol, which was a halfway house here, and it was an opportunity to volunteer.
Okay.
And I knew that I may not be good at much, but I'm good at helping.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to honor God at that time.
Amen. Yes.
And so I'm like, I can go. It's Young Men's Christian Association. It's something Christian going on there. So I want to be there.
Uh-huh.
So I came across this gal. Her name was Amber. I'll never forget her because I'm telling her, and I'm like, man, I don't think I'm good enough for much. I could probably sweep up around here, pick up some trash. You probably won't be able to use me for much because I'm a felon, but I just want to volunteer.
Right.
And it was in that moment that I'm like, man, maybe there might be something more to this.
Yes.
Because she was like, trash? What? No, we can have you volunteer, help out with teen night. We can have you help out with some of the events I have going. And so it's like, maybe something to this. So I ended up enjoying the volunteering portion, and Amber was like, why don't you apply here? Part-time job as a float.
Exactly.
I'm like, man, well, these folks, you guys, these folks here, seemingly, everyone here is so perfect. I don't fit the mold. Is what I thought.
Right.
But now working there just isn't a better place.
No, it is awesome.
I feel like I've found my niche.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I think you definitely feel like, I thought you do. And they're like a family there anyway, and that's why I just can't believe you have the background that you have.
It's one of those things where it happened. Biblically, it says all things work for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. So I strongly believe that, I made some negative choices. This was my life coming up to this point. But that God can use that according to his purposes.
Yes.
So there are many folks, especially out here, who struggle, who are going through life.
Yeah.
And I may not have gone through the same life they have, but at the same time, I've struggled.
Yep.
They struggle. Maybe I have some tools that they may be able to use.
Yep. No, that's true. I mean, everything you go through is just things you can. For one thing, it makes people realize that they're not the only one that's gone through that or going through that.
Correct.
And it's like, and that's like my wife and I, especially the last year and a half, have gone through a lot of trials and tribulations.
For sure.
And it's just like, make it, use that for positive.
Exactly.
So, and it's actually a blessing because all those people you can give guide, that they're going through all that. So, so what is the future? What is the dream now?
Honestly, right now, it's just, I am trying to just settle in at the Y.
Sure.
I have some other goals that I kind of want to accomplish. But right now, I feel like where I am is where I need to stay. Like you said, I truly feel like there are some callings on my life, but I just don't want to move too fast.
I hear you.
Outside of God's will, and I mean, I think that's just the goal, is to glorify God. I spend so much time putting poison into the world. I want to put love out there now.
Yes. Awesome. That's so awesome. And I think when it's time to move on, you'll know.
Yeah.
I think you definitely will know, but maybe you'll be running the Y sometime. Would you ever want to do something like that? Run an organization like that?
I think Troy and Ty and everyone in all the directors and the supervisors do such a great job.
They do. I
would pale in comparison to the job that they do. I truly think so.
But so, okay, we were talking, I was saying you should write a book or something, do a podcast. Would you thought about doing either one of those, or?
So throughout being here, folks have been like, Dave, you should do the radio. Dave, you should do this.
True.
And so it's been something in the back of my mind, but I wouldn't even know where to begin doing something like that. If I had, obviously, if God had blessed my path enough to run into some people who could help me organize something like that the right way, I'd be down. I'd be okay with that. Because I feel like it wouldn't be for my benefit, but I feel like there would be so many other folks who could benefit from something like that, that it would be useful.
Yes. No, I could definitely see that. So, so do you have any siblings?
Oh, yes. I have 6 siblings.
Okay.
So my oldest brother, his name is Mike.
Uh-huh.
Then my sister, Sabrina, she passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Then I have a younger brother, Josh, and then, younger brother, Tim, and then younger than him is Josh. And then I have 2 half-brothers,
Okay.
Rodney Jr. and Nathan has passed away as
well. Wow. Sorry on that, too. No, so younger, older, or you?
So amongst my immediate family, Mike, Tim, Josh, and Bree, I am smack dab in the middle.
Okay.
And when you add Rodney and Nathan, I am 4th born, or 5th born.
Okay.
Or 4th, sorry. Nathan, Mike. Yeah, so it would be 5.
Okay, awesome. Do you see them very often?
No. So we are not, I do not have the relationship with my family like some do.
Okay.
But for me, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like just trying to build on something that was so broken is becoming more of a distraction at this point.
Okay.
But I truly believe when it's time, God will make that happen.
No, I agree with that too. So, so have you ever thought about speaking? I could see you speaking in front of kids.
So it's funny you say kids. I have a passion for youth.
Okay.
Only because, and it's not I'm not saying anything is wrong with the youth who find it easy to stay in line in life. But my favorites are those who dip a toe out of line. Those who might be a little squirrely. The different ones. The weirdos, the misfits, so to speak. Simply because I was there. And it's interesting when you come across a youth who's going through these things. And as a kid, we all feel like, man, no one understands. No one gets
that's for sure.
I'll never be understood. But to come across an adult who's like, you're right. It is hard. It's not easy. And they're like, aha.
Yeah.
And so it's just always been my passion because we can all think back to that moment as a youth. There's always a moment for all of us where an adult or someone listened to us or uplifted us or was just present in a moment where we needed them to be. And I just try to be that moment for a lot of kids who otherwise may not have it.
That's so cool. So talking about kids, Freedom Factory. Yes. So how, actually they were on a podcast just a few weeks ago. How did you ever get associated or get to know them?
So that started, when I worked at Revive Ministries here in Hastings, which is another great organization, but when I was working there, and there was a gal, her name was Amanda, and I don't know what it was about it, but we would be outside, had taken our breaks, and we would chat. And so I wouldn't say I got to know her really well, but got to know a few things about her. She got to know a few things about me. One of those cordial things, hey,
right?
Found out that she had a passion for helping folks as well, right? So now that's kind of it. I stopped kind of seeing her, found a new position at the Y. Now, fast forward, I was invited by a gentleman by the name of Brady Rhodes to an event called Bringing Up Nebraska.
Okay.
And there she was.
Okay.
I didn't really realize that it was her at first, but then there she was, and so we got to chatting, and she asked about, and I don't know, I like helping. I like
me too
volunteering, and when she told me about our place, like how can I help? How can
I?
My question was, are there any volunteer opportunities? What can I do? And then she brought up the opportunity to be a board member, and again, I didn't think I was good enough. Like, me? Why? What do I have that a board could utilize? And so I went to the board meeting. I prayed. I'm like, God, I just want to be used by you. So if I can be used by you here, then allow your will to be done. And sure enough, it was a unanimous decision. We voted. But I'm just excited. I don't know what all of it entails really yet. I've been to one board meeting, and I'm just excited to glorify God while doing this, and hopefully impact some youth along the way.
I'm 100% positive. And I know when we were talking about that, when we were doing the podcast today, she was very excited to have you on the board too. So Addie is a very nice person. So how long this is your first board meeting again? So this is just recently that you got on the board?
Yes. Okay. It became just recently. I don't know. I just kind of went for it, but I had never been on the board before. On a board at all.
I haven't either. I've never been on a board. So I mean that. So she had a lot of, when I talked to her today about building and all this stuff, and there's, oh my gosh, that's such a neat organization, but so many things that they could. There's a lot of work that can be done there. That's for sure.
There is.
For sure. But she's like, if she knew anybody that had a building. So I mean, that is so cool. But so okay, 5-10 years from now, where would you like to be?
That's a tough question. Honestly, I want to be. I want to be loving those around me, whatever that means.
Cool.
I'd like to still be at the Y. I'd like to still be impacting people every day, whether it be through wellness, whether it be kids through some of our programs there, or just the smiles in the morning. But I hope to be in a position of leadership. Okay. I personally feel like I have leadership qualities, but what we're just talking about, God may not have that there. Like, there's just a lot of different things and a lot of different ways a person could lead. You don't need to be in a position of leadership to still be a leader within that place.
Yes.
And so that's my plan. I really don't have a whole lot of goals outside of just letting God lead, because once you set, like, for example, if I set my mind on just, for example, if I'm going to Walmart, I set my mind on just making it to Walmart, I might miss all the flowers along the way. I might miss all that beautiful along that way. So I have, like, one of my goals as a part-time situation, because I also do some part-time gigs, work for the city.
Okay.
One of my goals, working out, trying to get fit, because I plan on trying to apply for a fireman position.
Oh, wow.
So that's a goal of mine is to be able to settle in to where I'm doing the why, which is like, I call it my Bruce Wayne and Batman, because I truly have a save the world complex. So
That's a great complex to have.
I could do my Bruce Wayne during the day, work at the Y, do what I love, and then, you know, on the adverse, I could pull my Batman thing and
love
do the fireman thing. But that's right now, it's just getting into physical shape so I can at least pass the test. If I pass the test, I will have reached a goal, and then we'll see what happens at that point. But right now, it's just getting into that level of shape.
I love that visual too. I can definitely see that visual. And so okay, on that. So how do you go? I'm going to ask another question here. How did you get to know God, like you do now? How did that come about?
So for me, it was I like I said, unfortunately, I had found myself incarcerated.
Right. Yeah.
And when I went, so there's a story for you. When I went in there, so I went, and there was a guy who I had just seen. His name was Justin, and I had just seen him. I was doing some negative things, but I had just seen him a couple weeks before, randomly. And so when I went, the pod that they put me in just so happened he was my roommate.
Oh.
And I don't know, he was just different in there. And so he was just like, Dave, why are you here? Like, why are you here, dude? It's like, man, I don't know, man. I got into some trouble. He's like, you're not hearing me. And then we would go on about our day. And then one day I asked him for a book. He was like, man, you don't want these books. He handed me this little book. It was a little Gideon Bible.
Oh.
He was like, man, just read that. Man, I want to read it. I'm in jail. Like, I want to read something that's going to get my brain out of it.
Right.
Start there, is what he said.
Awesome.
And I didn't. And then finally, I don't know, we were sitting before we went to bed. He was like, Dave, what do you think about God? What's up with that?
Okay.
And at that point, I had already been, in my mind, he didn't know this, but in my mind, I'm already formulating, like, man, what am I going to do? Like, so I'm already
I could see that,
attempting to reach out to God, but in a place like that, a lot of folks look at praying and reaching out to God as a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
So I did not want to seem weak, but it was like, I was, and I needed strength. And so he said, man, you should write a kite to God. I'm like, what is that? He's like, yo, it's a pod here in county that's specifically for folks to get to know God.
Really?
Like,
okay.
Man, there's no way. So I went. I put in the kite. I'm like, okay, a kite is just a request form. So
okay.
I put that request form in, and I'm like, okay, I'll go. And I remember praying. I'm like, God, I don't know, but I'm stuck. Found myself in here. So if you want me to do this, do it. I mean, I'm not going to fight you anymore.
Right,
I remember saying that, and then within hours, wasn't even hours, like David, this is where you're going. So I go there, and I'm in this pod, and over the time that I'm there, I'm reading the word, but not just that, like, I'm reading the word differently, like stuff is hopping off the page. And it's like anytime anyone's around me, like speaking about God, like I'm like want to soak it up just to sponge it up. But I feel like I got to know him in a personal level. It's like the world, a lot of people look at getting to know God in an incarcerated situation, an institution, as a hindrance. But for me personally, it was an asset.
Okay.
Because there was so much noise going on outside, so many other influences.
Sure.
The world was like, it was never quiet enough for me to even hear God.
I can believe that with what you said, yeah.
And so in there, everything was so quiet, like I didn't have anything else to do but pick up the Bible. I didn't have anything else to do but to start to pray. And so at that point, I began to pray and read my Bible every day and just glean all these different things from the word that I'm reading. And I'd read like the Proverbs. I would read a proverb a day. I had been doing that since I was young.
Okay.
But these proverbs were starting to mean something completely different. I'm starting to remember them. I'm starting to, as the Bible says, hide them in my heart. And when I need them, it's just they pop out, and I'm able to regurgitate it now when I need to use it. But that's kind of how I started to get to know him, just diving deep into his word. And I remember praying, hey, God, if there's something you want me to understand or know from whatever it is I read, help me understand it. And I know that's a really juvenile or childlike way to pray, but
all right.
when I was coming up in the church, one thing I heard was we have to have this childlike faith.
That is very
so
true.
the goal was to maintain that. You are my father, I'm your son. Help me.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the way I see God too. Like he's an awesome father. I mean, he is. And no, that is so cool. I mean, it's just God just put it in my head. Have you ever thought about being the head of a church? I just got, when you were talking about that, I saw this visualization of you at the front of I don't know if a traditional church, but at the front where you're speaking. I mean, maybe an online church, I don't know, but you were in the front speaking.
I thought about that, and I don't want to put but because God qualifies those he calls. He doesn't.
Right.
You don't have to be qualified because he'll make sure you have it when he's ready for you to do
your
job. But I've thought about it. But I don't want to move before it's time, because with a position like that, at least to me, it's a lot of responsibility. Because
true.
Pastor, you are a shepherd. You are shepherding a flock. So you are charged with protecting. You are charged with feeding these folks spiritually. You are charged with raising them up. That is such a heavy responsibility.
It is, yeah.
That I don't take that lightly.
Which is good.
And I also believe that a pastor, just because if a person has that pastoral calling on their life, you don't have to have that title to still operate in that calling.
Amen. Yes.
And so, I feel like I've been able to influence folks without being in a church.
True.
And so I think if that opportunity presents itself,
I don't know. When you were talking there, it just flashed in front of me, and it's just like, I can see you doing that. I hadn't thought about that, but I could definitely see you doing that.
There's a lot of spiritual maturing that needs to be done.
Yeah.
But
you've come a long ways.
I think so.
Really a long ways. So, you're doing a TEDx talk or something like that. That'd be kind of, I could see, maybe that was what you're doing. You're speaking in front of a bunch of people. Have you heard about a TED talk or?
So speaking is something I feel like I would be good at. And I watched a lot of TED talks in college. It would be something interesting. If those opportunities ever presents themselves, there's a quote that I live by. If it's something positive, I will never say no.
Okay. I like that.
So as long as it's a positive opportunity and an opportunity to glorify God, I'm down.
Okay. That is so awesome. So what's something else that you haven't done that you would like to do?
As far as, what do you mean?
In life, or traveling or writing. I mean, what is there something that, it's like, I'm going to do that someday?
So I think a book is something I need to do, only because even in a format like this, a lot of my story has to be edited.
Okay.
And I feel like in a book, in a format like that, life is real. Life isn't edited. Life isn't.
Very much, yeah.
And so some of the folks who could benefit from a story like mine, their life isn't edited. Their life is raw. It's real.
No, that's for sure.
And so being able to put it in a format like that, I'm able to put some details in there, able to get raw or get real. And I feel like the right people will be able to understand and grow from that.
They will.
And so maybe a book might be effective.
Yeah, that's what God keeps telling me. He's like, because I don't write well. Writing is a struggle for me. And he's like, so when you're writing that book, when are you going to start? And because basically what I've gone through to get to this, and it's just like he talks to me about that a lot. And he's like, it's so easy to write a book now. You can just, with these apps and stuff. And he's like, get started. Because that's just like, yes. Yeah. And I told my wife, it's like, I never thought I'd write a book, but he's not going to, I think maybe more than one book. I don't know, but he definitely. And, we talked to God. I wasn't that long ago. I had never, I talked to God now. So when did that come for you? I know you said you kind of.
It didn't come, well, it started happening when I was incarcerated. But really, it didn't really hit legitimately until I got out of there, came out to Hastings. And that was when the real, I quote unquote, that's when the fun started. Because it's like for me, it was, being incarcerated was like a spiritual gym, so to speak. So I'm working out my spiritual muscles, getting bigger spiritually, so to speak. So as soon as I got out, now these muscles were getting put to the test.
Right.
And so that was an opportunity to really cling to God, so to speak, really get into my word, really utilize all of these things in the moment. You know, because when you're incarcerated, yes, there's still a lot of temptation, but life begins to come at you. And so it was then that when I needed to calm down, that was when I would, you know, find a quiet place. That was when I would learn to be still. Because there's a quote in the Bible that says, "Be still and know that I am God, all the heavens, God of all the earth." And so sometimes it's so hard to be still.
It is.
When I got out here, I realized, I do need to be still. And just because life looks this way, just because I'm a felon and this job says this, if I'm called here, I'm just to be still and know that God is God, the Alpha and the Omega.
Exactly.
The author and the finisher of our faith. So,
okay, going back to how long were you incarcerated?
It was, for a total of, the total was about 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And so I was off of papers and completely free September 19th of 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, when you got out, if somebody was in that same situation, how would you tell them to go about trying to make a change or a difference in their life? Because you knew what you knew there, but you obviously changed from that, what you knew. Did the incarceration do that? Or what changed?
So for me, in order to change, folks have to hit a catalyst point. There's always a catalyst.
Right.
It's going to, almost like a sparking point. Like a flint hitting that, you get that spark.
Right.
Begins to blaze. So for me, it was being incarcerated, realizing that I really have realizing that I have found myself in trouble. I have hit this point, and I need to make a change. And so at that point, I began to get intentional.
Okay.
And so for some people, it's once you reach the end of yourself, once you've had enough.
Right.
When you're done, is what I tell people. When folks are done eating, you may say you're done eating, but when you're done, you know you are.
You are, yeah.
You push that. So once you're done doing whatever it is that you're doing, then that's when you'll be ready for that change. And I wish the answer was simpler than that. But in a world where real life is real life, we want people's catalysts to be when we want them to be.
True.
But it's not always like that.
Right.
When they get tired of going through what they've been going through, when they get tired of getting what they've been getting, they're going to start doing something different to receive something different.
True. Yeah, because you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results.
Get the same results.
So did you, when you got out of there, did you know that when you got out, when you were free after you were in 2 years? I mean, day one when you got out, I mean, what was that like? So
a part of that, the tail end of that incarceration was at the halfway house.
Okay.
And so for me, that was important because it was like a soft entry for me. So yes, it's still incarceration, but it was a point where I'm not like behind bars, but I'm still able to get used to things. And so for me, I was ready to hit the ground running.
Okay.
I was ready to go.
Okay.
Now I was talking about all this. I had these goals. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to get in shape. I wanted to mentally focus on things, but I needed to slow down. And so for me right away I need to do things in moderation. And understand that there's a process to everything. And that's what, being in Bristol, that's what I learned, because there you have to, that's why I say it's still incarceration, because there you had to write down, you had to build an itinerary, have a plan in place. I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there, going to go here, going to go there.
Everything was,
and so it forces you to slow down and be intentional about every move you make, everywhere you're going to go. How long am I going to spend there? If I'm buying $50 in groceries so I can have lunch for the week, or if I'm taking these to put in, how long is this going to take me? So at this point, I'm getting intentional. I'm becoming intentional about every move I make. And so that may be nothing to some folks, but to a group of people who have never didn't really think through a lot of their actions.
Right.
And so for me, that was a catalyst.
Okay.
So now that I'm done, that's still second nature. So now it's still ingrained in me now. coming here, did I have enough gas? Do I have enough time? And
Exactly.
so it's like, for me, that was a catalyst point. And so I say all of that to say, whatever that catalyst looks like to you, being intentional about what you're doing is going to help it.
Yes.
So wherever you find yourself, if it's whether you use and you hit a point where you've been displaced from things, and so now you want to change. At this point, you've got to get intentional, not about the changing portion, because yes, I want to change.
Right.
But what are the workable steps it's going to take you to get to that change?
Yeah, to that point. Yeah.
So it's like, for example, let's say I want to go to Walmart. Okay, I want to go. There's no action yet. What are the workable steps? Well, I got to step up, get my car keys, go to my car, turn it on, drive here, and so have a plan in place so you can be intentional about each and every step.
Awesome.
That's it.
And I think there's a lot of people in our today's society, that aren't intentional. I think they are on automatic pilot. I think a lot of them don't even think about, if they thought about their day, they wouldn't even probably know what they did. And so what do you think of that? I mean, I think it's because we have the automatic everything. We're always on our phone and our media and everything else. It's a society. What are the consequences of not being intentional? I mean, what you just kind of said was one thing. So
the consequences are you have more quantity but less quality, and you could apply that to anything.
True.
Like we have more music, but less quality.
Yeah, it's true.
More, all of these YouTubers and all of these people out here making all of this content.
Yeah.
But how much of it is actual quality? So you just get more of this stuff, but not a lot of it is quality. And so when you have a world that moves in now, have you ever put together a fabricated house or a prefab house as opposed to building it from the ground up?
Yeah.
It's
done. Yeah.
It may look nice.
Yeah.
But that house is not going to last half as long as one that's done from the foundation up. And so I think that's just the world we live in. And I think in order to change that, the value of quality is going to have to come back.
I agree. No, I definitely agree. So David, what are some other things you'd like to share with the audience before we end today?
Other things I'd like to share? I really, I'm a pretty simple fella. I don't really have much.
You're an awesome fella. So I'm just glad God crossed our path. So I just, because I think maybe the first day I came back in there, you were at the desk.
Yes.
So, so how many hours do you put in a week? Is it?
So at the wide, between 35 and 40.
Okay, so it's
full-time.
It's full time then. So no, I mean, get you on a podcast sometime, doing your own podcast.
I'd like to.
You would be good on a podcast. You would really be good. So,
well, maybe you could be the Obi-Wan Kenobi to my Anakin on that.
I could do that. Yeah, no, you could. That'd be awesome. Get you started on doing a podcast, and because ample places where you could get guests. That's for sure. So, but. Well, on that, I'm going to end the podcast, and thank you, David, for being on the Dreamcatcher podcast, if I can say that. So, and maybe have the on follow-up. I mean, I loved it. Your journey is awesome. So,
anytime.
So, thank you, and we'll end there, and have the rest of your day.
Yes, sir. Thank you.